Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. So I believe it's 3:05, so maybe we can get started. Thank you all for joining to today's session. This is from InnerSource to open source. My name is Javier Alvarez, and I'm be sharing with you the Discover's open source journey. And more specifically, I'll be sharing how we have been transforming the developer experience by embracing open source principles internally. But before we get into that, I would like to just take a few moments to introduce the open source team at Discover. So again, my name is Javier Alvarez, and I'm the principal application engineer for the Golden Paths team and the RIS Federation team. We have Priya Krishnamurthy. She's the senior manager of Golden Paths and the RIS Federation team. We have Andy Smith. He's the director of open source. We have Andrew Dockett, which is our expert application engineer and developer advocate, and Vincent Edwards, which is our product owner of open source. So their LinkedIn IDs are up on the slides. Feel free to take note. I'm sure they are also looking forward to start a conversation with you with any topics about open source related. Great, so now let me walk you through today's agenda. So we'll start by discussing Discover as a company, and then I'll give you a brief introduction of InnerSource and InnerSource at Discover, and then we'll discuss some of the challenges and the benefits of InnerSource, and I'll share one product within Discover that is InnerSource related to showcase all the benefits of InnerSource. Then we'll discuss what is the strategy of Discover beyond the InnerSource model, and we'll be discussing the foundation model and some benefits of the foundation model. And then we'll wrap up with what's next in our journey and a few takeaways. Okay, so let's get started. Discover is one of the leading banks in the United States, as it offers a broad range of products, including credit cards, debit cards, student loans, personal loans, and deposit services. So, but we also have the Discover Global Network that is that contains millions of merchants and cash access points, and we have the Pulse, which is one of the largest ATM networks in the country. And we have the Diners Club International, which is the global payment network that is accepted across the globe. So that's all great, but Discover is more than just a financial institution. We are also a digital playground for some of the best engineers out there. Being an engineer at Discover is rewarding for many reasons, but here are some. We work in small autonomous teams that are being tasked with meaningful work, and we work on projects that directly impact the consumers and make a difference in people's lives. But we also work hard on our self-development through learning and innovation, and we have access to senior leadership at all levels. Okay, so that's a great transition into our first topic of the day, which is why open works and what is open works anyway. So as we saw from the previous slides, Discover is a very dynamic and innovative environment. And as such, we needed a way to continue working smarter, enhance collaboration, and scale the impact of those products even further. And that's how OpenWorks was created in 2022. So it was grounded on 3 C's principles, which is the consumption, contribution, and community. So out of these 3 principles, the OpenWorks was created in Discover. And out of these 3 principles, 4 foundational pillars were created that will support the OpenWorks practices at Discover. So these pillars are the Reuse Hub, the InnerSource community, the Open Source Project Office, and the Discover Labs. So combined, all of these pillars were designed to create a stronger developer community and enhance the developer experience. So today I'm going to be sharing more about the InnerSource community and how we have evolved that to tackle some of the challenges that we have faced, fostering innovation, and enriching our broader engineering culture. So let's start talking about InnerSource. So a common definition of InnerSource is the use of open source practices and methods used within your proprietary company. So within Discover, InnerSource refers to having dedicated product teams that are sponsors of specific products. So they have decided to open up those products for contributions within the company. So that means that we have teams that are the sponsors of the specific products, and they, as the owners, are opening those products for contributions. And that has already brought us a lot of benefits. We have been able to increase our capacity by resolving resource bottlenecks, since we have been able to accelerate that development by co-opting contributions from within the company. And we have been also been able to increase our community engagement, which has upskilled the culture at Discover. So before we dive into the challenges of InnerSource at Discover, and I would like to talk about one of the InnerSource products at Discover that I am particularly excited about, and that is the Golden Paths. So Golden Paths is the step-by-step tutorial that will walk you through the opinionated and supported path to build something. So you can think of these as higher order workflows consisting of a collection of step-by-step tutorials that we stitch in together to create comprehensive developer journeys. So you can create Golden Paths for anything, but within Discover, we use it for these main key areas, which are onboarding, APIs, backend services, and security guidelines. So that means that if you are a new engineer joining at Discover, there will be a Golden Path that will help you get started, set up your workstation, get the proper access, and be able to install all the services that you'll need to perform your jobs at Discover. So if you are an application team, for example, and are being tasked to work on API services, maybe as a consumer or as a provider, there's a Golden Path that will guide you through all the steps that you can take in order to design an API and be compliant with Discover's standards. In regards to the backend services, we have a template generator that teams can use to jumpstart their requirements by running a job that will generate a microservice that will already contain all the embedded best practices. So in regards to security guidelines, we have a Golden Path that will help application teams to make sure their projects are free of vulnerabilities and all their libraries are up to date. So what are the benefits of Golden Paths? Well, they can simplify getting started to minimize the cognitive load. So that means that we can let developers focus on higher objectives. But they can also help us to turn rumor into recommended. And what I mean by that is that sometimes the only way that you can know how to do something is by asking your colleague. So by having a Golden Path, now we have all the best practices in one place, and it can also help us to decrease fragmentation and inconsistencies. And that can be done by making sure that the tools and the services that are provided on the path are aligned with the company standards and the best practices. So this is a great example of an InnerSource product at Discover, because this was created by a specific Golden Paths team and maintained by them. Then they decided to open up the project to co-opt contributions from other key areas, and that's how we were able to build more Golden Paths and expand the scope of the Golden Paths. So although we have been able to increase collaboration and increase the reusability of some of these assets, there are still challenges while we have implemented this model. So some of the challenges that we face by implementing the InnerSource model at Discover is that there is a loss of ownership. So what I mean is that over time, the individuals that are working on these teams might move on, or the teams might get dissolved, or the priorities get shifted. So while all these things happen, these libraries and components that were created and sponsored by these teams are being left behind. So that is causing an atrophy in the maintenance and the quality of these products. Another challenge that we saw is that although we have some of the best engineers working on creating valuable reusable assets, sometimes these libraries are falling outside of anyone's product team scope. So there's also not clear ownership of these libraries. And one other challenge that I would like to call out is that each product team that has opened their products for contributions has created its own onboarding process. So you can imagine then that if you're an engineer trying to contribute to multiple InnerSource projects, you'll have to go through different onboarding processes, which is not ideal. So in order to help resolve this challenge, Discover decided to adopt an internal open source model that highlights the component reuse. So that means that instead of talking now about a challenge, we're talking about an opportunity. So as we said, initially the goal was to open up products for co-opting contributions and accelerate development in order to resolve resource bottlenecks, which worked great, and it gave us some limited success. But we still had teams that are still building same features independently, and teams are owners of complete systems, which also impacts the reusability. So what we are moving to in our next stage of our journey is a community of continuous collaboration. So what that means is now that we can have a community that builds subcomponents and utilities that can be used across many different systems or to build more complex components. So this helps to reduce the duplication of efforts and helps on reusability. So in order to facilitate this shift, we have introduced the foundation model. So the foundation model is designed to govern these reusable assets and libraries in a way that is sustainable and scalable. So that means that we are now empowering engineers to take ownership of these libraries. And this foundation model can also serve as the incubator for InnerSource projects that have already gained traction, but that need more structurized maintenance or standardization. So another thing is that we are now being able to offer a pathway for these libraries and components to become institutionalized within Discover and ensure its longevity and consistency in quality. And much like open source software, by using these projects, the engineers will have to assume some responsibility while using these libraries. So that means that having healthy, active projects means that there is a better community eager to help. So for this foundation model, the community-driven development framework is at the heart. So what I mean is that we are now providing a structure that will sustain and scale our initiative, but our commitment through open source principles will drive the efficiency, innovation, and collaboration. So now, instead of talking about products, which was the original model, we're now talking about projects. And most of the times, these projects will be built, sustained, and maintained by the community. So what are some of the benefits of the foundation model? Well, by embracing open source principles internally, we are creating a and fostering a culture of transparency and collaboration. Working with or being transparent with what we do is really important, because building a community without transparency, it's really hard. That's why we work to provide meaningful context of where we are in the process, how we got here, and where we are going. As we mentioned, with the foundation model, we are now providing a structure that will sustain and scale the initiative, while our commitments to open source principles will drive the efficiency and collaboration. Now, I would like to highlight one of the contributions of Discover to the open source. This is really important because this shows that this showcases that we have learned all the previous practices, and we have been able to build a product that is helpful to the community. So this project is called Theme Builder, and it helps designers and developers to create user interfaces, using accessible components by using the atomic design principles. So this was initiated and incubated within Discover, and last year it was opened up for hackathon, and later it was contributed to the Finos Foundation. Okay, so what's next in our journey? Well, as we look ahead in our journey, our focus is going to be in expanding the reach of InnerSource and strengthening the foundation model. So we're looking to do this through training programs and creating educational and supporting content for the application teams to be able to know how to onboard into these new projects. In terms of contribution, we're looking to continue scaling our governance process, because our engineers are not going to be just building these new libraries, but they are also going to play a crucial role in setting the standards and making sure that the contributions adhere to the best standards of Discover. So that means that we can continue to have high standards while we still have flexibility in the resource capacity. And another thing is that we're going to be working to standardize the pipelines for delivery. That means that we have right now multiple projects with different technologies, so we want to be able to streamline those to have a more standardized way to deliver those and get them deployed for the community. Last but not least is the compliance posture. So this year, Discover has been worked really hard on making sure that we improve the Discover's risk posture. And what we're working on is working with the community in order to identify the best practices that teams can follow in order to be compliant with their standards and policies. Great, so to close, a few takeaways. Reuse what's already available. So there are great models out there. You don't have to create one. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just pick one and tailor to your needs. Move towards an open models of working. This enables teams to collaborate more effectively towards a shared goal and develop shared expertise, which can also lead to long-term sustainability of the models. Leverage the community. That means prioritize the needs of the developer community, but make sure that these ideas are in line with the company goals. And finally, start somewhere. Improvement doesn't have to be an all or nothing approach. Starting somewhere, maybe with InnerSource, is going to give you a lot of great benefits in the long run. Great, so we are really excited to continue this journey, and we invite you to join us as we push the boundaries of what's possible within Discover. Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer. Yeah.
Does something like your onboarding process include permissioning?
Yes. So for example, depending on the role that you are joining to Discover, is different types of roles that you may need to request. So yeah, we guide you through like all the different systems that can help you to get you access. But then you have to work with your manager to get the proper roles. But we give you the tools to request those. Yeah.
This and you have to do every step.
Right. It's more like a checklist, but we call it a journey because it will take you through all the different stages that you have to go through. Like just requesting access is one of them, but then you have to also make sure that you install all the proper tools that you need to work to do your job at Discover, and also make sure that you have the access to install those that software. So most of that is mostly checklists, but there is a way in which, like, depending on the role, you can just like assign all these access requests into or bundle them into one job role, and then that job role can be assigned to that specific person. So that is just how the access works. But in terms of automation, in the Golden Paths, we do have some types of automation, like the one that we mentioned, where we can run a job to generate a microservice that will already contain the best practices to how to, like build with using the Discover pipeline, and like the best practices on how to secure the microservice. Yeah, so we initially, the main focus of the Golden Paths is to help developers. And so we have seen an opportunity to expand it through like the different technology areas, including, like, for example, if there are specific services that will help you to create a streaming service or a database, to create, as we said, an API. So any construct that relates to technology, I think there's an opportunity to automate it. But at the same time, we are starting by making sure that we have documented the right procedure for those. So we first connect with all the SMEs and create what is the flow, and make sure that that flow covers all the best practices. And from there, if we see there's an opportunity to automate, we do that. And this is where we have tested this thus far, but we have not been able to take it to other areas. I don't know if you were thinking of any specific area where it could get expanded to. Yeah, definitely. Golden Paths can help on testing. Like, for example, on the microservice, when you export it, it will contain all the main test strategies. For example, unit test, component test, and acceptance test. So you'll have a mock of those within your microservice, so that developers will already know at least how to write unit tests or component tests, so they can follow along the same path. Yeah. Thank you. Cool. Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending.